Hi, and welcome back for this module on the role of the public sector. When we look at waste governance, one key stakeholder, of course, is the public sector. Solid waste management, in fact, is often cited as one of the most visible indicators of the state of urban governance. We have already talked about the role of the public sector as policymaker and regulator in the last module. Often another function in the public sector is the one of service provider, especially when you think of the urban local government. In this module, we should look at this and other main challenges that the public sector faces in solid waste management. There are many public sector institutions representing the government that are responsible for solid waste management. Good institutional arrangements inside the public sector include clear organizational structures and clear assignments of roles and responsibilities of the various public agencies. In many developing countries, however, there is often a strong institutional fragmentation. Fragmentation and a lack of clarity in roles makes it very difficult to hold concerned agencies accountable for what they do. It also makes coordination a major challenge. In the worst case, for instance, the Department of Cleansing may depend on vehicles and drivers which also work for the Highway Department and may be under the jurisdiction of the Central Transport Department, and the salaries for the laborers and drivers are paid by another unit altogether, for instance the Personnel Organization or the Central Finance Ministry. In such a case, then 4 or even more separate departments can be involved in day-to-day waste service operations. This is a practical nightmare for management. What, however, is crucial is to separate between a regulator and an operator. Else, transparency, accountability, and enforcement is extremely challenging, if not impossible. Another critical issue is whether there is a sustained political commitment to solid waste management, typically by the mayor, and not only in times when things go bad, but also when things go well. However, we have to pay attention that the solid waste department is not subject to political maneuvers. One key issue always cited is transparency and accountability of the public sector. As this is a service provided to the citizen, it is also scrutinized by them. It requires their acceptance and their collaboration, and transparency and accountability is the main way to build trust. We haven't been talking much about corruption until now, but in waste governance, this is also a major issue of concern. So, integrity of waste governance is an important element of building a trust relationship among different stakeholders, which again is facilitated through a very clear strategy of transparency and accountability. Waste collection is usually best provided at the lowest appropriate level of municipal administration, which means closest to the service users, the people. But in metropolitan areas or small urban centers, the organization and the investment in larger infrastructure, such as waste treatment or disposal, may need to be organized on a unified basis across cities or across the county. Here, intermunicipal cooperation can be an essential element. This involves an approach that uses synergies by cooperation between municipalities in order to increase public service efficiency and also create economies of scale. In other words, it's about joining forces. One other aspect is that of professional competence. Solid waste departments are unfortunately often not seen as a prestigious department to work for or to direct. At the same time, you have probably already realized that working in the waste sector is a highly interdisciplinary task, needing expertise in management, engineering, logistics, or social mobilization. So we have a major problem in the public sector, which is a bad image, a low recognition of the work, although it is highly complex and is a demanding challenge. The lack of qualified staff and professional competences affect performance and decision-making. And this may be even worse in small towns and municipality, as often the better qualified professionals like to remain close to the large cities or even the capital. Another aspect is the fact that hiring as governmental employees often does not relate to skills, but rather to social connections. And once hired, there are kind of limited possibilities to value or to correct performance of the work. More often than not, local authorities will lack the competencies to negotiate, interact with private sector, donor agencies, or even business people or salespeople that promise some magic waste treatment solutions. In order to develop staff capacities and competence, a good starting point is for governmental institutions to collaborate with local universities, NGOs, or consultants. Strengthening formal education on waste management topics, both technology and governance related, is a very good investment for obtaining qualified staff. Another option is also to connect local government officers among each other to facilitate an exchange of experiences for collective learning. For instance, under the name PEARL, Peer Experience and Reflective Learning, a network was launched in India in 2007 by the Ministry of Urban Development for cross-learning and exchanging experiences. Documenting and publishing experiences is a good way to share, not only showing best practices, but maybe also things that not go so well, in order to learn from failures. The Pearl Network from India, for instance, has recently published a compendium of good practices in urban solid waste management. It is structured into different thematic sections as shown here. You will also find this document on the suggested readings or on our webpage if you want to look into more detail into the various good practices. Developing public sector capacity and the skills to manage this complex task does not come overnight. As an example, let me show you the case of Maputo in Mozambique. Mozambique, in a decentralization process, transferred the responsibilities of waste management to the local government or to the municipalities through their Local Government Act. This decentralization process, however, was not matched with the transfer of financial, technical, or institutional resources. And therefore, it was very difficult for these municipalities to provide an acceptable service. A specific solid waste management regulation then only followed in 2004. This finally gave local authorities the power to adopt specific rules, establish fees for waste management, or approve and license processes and technologies. It also required the local authorities to develop and submit waste management plans that were then approved by the Ministry for Coordination of Environmental Action. For Maputo, waste management falls under the responsibility of the Directorate of Hygiene, which is responsible for the execution of collection services, contracting, supervision, and disposal site management. Street sweeping was handed over to the urban district administrations. Maputo introduced specific bylaws in 2008. The current collection system comprises adequate solutions for different characteristics of the city. I'll talk more about this in a later module. The municipality still provides part of the service. Other services are subcontracted to private sector or micro enterprises, and they achieve an excellent collection coverage of 82%. Finally, the last aspect I want to mention in relation to strengthening municipal authorities is the aspect of data management. It has already come up in various previous modules, and you'll probably be hearing more about it again and again. Also when talking about benchmarking. Measuring performance and practice can help determine effectiveness of policies, but also the effectiveness of the funds being spent for solid waste management. Besides collecting the data, it is of course essential to be able to process the raw data into useful information, which can then be used to make wise decisions. This again requires respective skills and capacities. This, of course, comes at a cost, but data collection is becoming more affordable due to innovations in information technology. So let me summarize this module with this slide. First, I highlighted the importance of clear institutional responsibilities among public sector agencies. Ideally, it would be nice to have a unique entity with operational and financial independence, as well as the power to implement. Institutional fragmentation in waste management makes life very complicated. The public waste sector needs strong, sustained political support, not only when things go bad. But it should not be hijacked for political motives. And finally, we touched upon the subject of professional expertise and how to strengthen capacity in the public sector. Thank you for listening.